This is a league that most people don't know about. There are some really good hockey players that go under the radar there as well. In this video today, we're going to be talking about the MHL, the Maritime Hockey League. As it says in the title, this is about the Maritime, a junior A league that is unknown to most of you, and for good reasons. Now, the Maritime's junior A league is equivalent to Quebec in terms of exposure, that there isn't any, right? Division 1 schools are not going to watch that league. It's also equivalent to Quebec in the sense that there are some really good hockey players that go under the radar there as well. The Maritime Junior League has a lot of the recruits for the 𝗂𝗵𝗿𝗟𝗔𝗠𝗏 will end up in that league. The younger players that aren't quite ready, the older guys who messed up at tryouts or didn't perform well at the beginning of the season, they'll probably get sent back to that league. Reason being, it's easy for the Maritime and major junior teams to call up their spares and get some ice time when they're needed. So in terms of actual hockey caliber, there is some really good hockey players in that league. Now, unfortunately, it's not well known. It's not a big destination if you want to get recruited for the United States. It's far away. It's not the highest caliber junior A either. And overall, most of the kids who play there in that league have either only wanted to play in the Q or previously to this new NCAA rule had already lost their eligibility, so they went to play there afterwards. Now, like I mentioned, this is previously before the NCAA rule change. Now, players in that league are eligible to play to D1. I'm curious to see if players in those leagues who have good advisors will use their connections to get them committed and change the landscape of what that league looks like. In previous years, again, before this NCAA rule, there was a lot of U Sports commits coming out of those leagues because it's easy access for them, right? Schools are close distance. They can go watch games. They can go watch these guys play. They also know that these players, 90% of them lost their eligibility, so it was a good place to recruit for U Sports. And again, this is previously before the NCAA rule. This might change everything about this league. They're skilled players. If they have a good advisor, they might attract the school to go watch them play. And now more than ever, the advisor is going to be important because there's going to be way too many players for these NCAA teams to go watch them all. So the advisors are going to play a huge part in trying to get these guys recruited. The MHL is a much less physical league than out west. You compare it to the Manitoba League, it is a much more skill-based, hands deking plays, things like that, than out west, just because that's how the Q is as well. That they are much more of a dangle league, if you want to put it that way, whereas out west, it's a completely different story. This is a league that most people don't know about. Like I mentioned, when talking to US players, they don't know anything about this. They don't see it as an option. It's a lower end tier 2, mostly because of exposure, not because the talent isn't there. There is some good hockey players, and hopefully things will change with this new rule passing, but unfortunately only time will tell. The one thing this league does very well is they do have a pretty good fan base. Because they're in remote locations where NHL teams aren't there, AHL teams, or even East Coast teams, most of these teams get a pretty good fan base. You know, the players feel really welcome in the communities. When you're going around town representing your team with your logos, you're well looked at by people. And the good news is they respect you, they're excited to see you, and it's a really good hockey community. The bad news is you're always under a microscope, right? You do something wrong, everybody will know very quickly. So it also keeps you to a higher standard, which in some cases, some junior hockey players need that to make sure they stay the right course. If you didn't know much about this league, hopefully you learned a little bit. The MHL will hopefully have a little bit of changes here with the new NCAA rules and giving them a better outlook, because at the end of the day, we want to give every kid a chance to play as high as possible, whether that's U Sports or NCAA.